Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our sessions. My name is Christian. So I lead the Cloud Center of Excellence, the CCOE in IT in Telkomsel, one of the largest telco company in Indonesia, 11 hours apart from this New York, actually, and my colleague.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Lutfi. I am cloud engineer at Telkomsel.
So in this session, we will talk mostly about the cloud migration itself, right? And then the pain points we had when we did the migration 4 years ago, and then the approach, the tooling method that we did so that we comes to the FinOps things. So if we talk about the telco, right? So in these 30 years of our company, we did a lot in the infrastructure of on-premise things. So we built a lot of the PTS, you can mention it, the hardware, etc. So 4 years back, we did the migration to the public cloud, the AWS, and then when we did the migration, we shift and migrate mostly of the mission-critical application, the self-service things, to the public cloud. And what happened? The cost increased. We didn't expect it. And then a lot of discussion here and there, finance team, engineering team, shout aloud. And then it's quite a panic. So what happened there? It's about the cost, right? Eventually, cloud is about the cost. So before we come into that, how we did the solution, introduce ourselves, we at Telkomsel, like we mentioned. We had 270,000 BTS across the islands. Indonesia had 17,000 islands, actually, in this country. And we serve almost 160 million subscribers, actually. And our application, the self-service, we have the 30 million MAU, actually. And this application, the front end, back end, now in the public cloud, mainly in the AWS. So we cover mostly the Indonesian population in this country. Like I mentioned, we predominantly born on premise, and we had a lot of challenge when we do the migration to the AWS. And in terms of the current scale, right, we have almost 100 nodes, EC2 instances, and then we had a lot of cluster Kubernetes, the EKS, around 40 plus, and then the microservices, around 17,000 microservices for the applications, could be deployments, 15,000, and the number of ports, we have 26,000. So you can imagine the scale we had now, right? And you can imagine the cost when it's quite increased and it's different aspect. So when we start about the journey itself, so maybe if someone of you is about to start the migration or you already did the migrations, we know about several approaches to the migration, right? Lift and shift, etc. But just because you can do the lift and shift doesn't mean you have to do lift and shift. The quickest way to migration is relocate just whatever you have in the VM, do it in the EC2, in the public cloud. But you can do the more efficient way, like the platform. You find the similar platform in the cloud and then just move the application itself. Or you can do the repurchase, the SaaS model. But the long-term benefit we can do is to do the re-architecture. When we had the on-premise application, right, we know that we have many technical debt there. When we do the migration, it's opportunity to us to do re-architect and recode the application in better way so that we can reap the benefit of the cloud when we do the migration. So our journey started 4 years back. And when we talk about the IT, right, we can do the approach from the several things, first from the technology part. Because we born in the on-premise, so we need to think about the hybrid cloud, actually. We think that not all applications suitable in the public cloud because of the cost, because of the integration, because of the investation we did. So we start the architecture from the hybrid cloud. We have the direct connectivity, and then, yeah, we did that. And of course, when we do the application on the cloud, we do with the cloud-native infrastructure approach. And then from the people perspective, when we start the journey itself, we start from the people. We built this unit, Cloud Center of Excellence, with 10, 15 people, because this is the unit that will do and start the transformations. So people is quite important, and then we train these people, train the IT people. Actually, in our organization, we have 600 plus employee, and we train everyone, and we get certified around 90 plus. And let's about the process. We think that the partnership with the provider is quite important, right? From the CSP, the AWS, Google, or whatever cloud you use, I think we need to have this strategic partnership because at the end, They are the one who own the product, and they are the one that can help us to do the optimizations and also to transform the operating model toward the DevSecOps. And then when we talk about the telco or whatever industry you had, you can think that we have several workloads, right? Like I mentioned, not every workload suitable in the cloud. So in the telco world, there are several workloads that we can access in the cloud. First, the BI, data platform. I think we can start from there. Whether it's suitable or not in the cloud, you can see in the organizations. And then the digital channels, like I mentioned, the mission critical, the shared service one. I think it's quite important to have this workload because of the resiliency requirement serving the customer directly. It's quite suitable in the cloud. And then it's quite unique to the telco is the network, the RAN, radio access network, etc. It's quite challenging actually, even us now in the progress to the cloudifications, but it's typical of workload that quite unique in the telco that suitable also in the cloud, but let's access together. And also the enterprise application like the ERP, etc. is quite typical workload that you can also access in your organization. When will you migrate to the cloud or whatever is suitable or not. And then why cloud migration alone is not enough? Because we realize that the cloud adoption is not only moving the infrastructure, but also moving the accountability. Who own the cost? Who own the workload? So because cloud is about the cost, at the end, whoever owns the budget is the one who has the accountability itself. When we step back to the 4 years back, right? So the foundation, we set up the unit, cloud COE. Now, of course, when we talk about the cloud, we need to have the landing zone itself as the foundation to have the cloud itself, and then operationalize the operating model and introduce the FinOps, also modernize the application itself. And then the third phase about the scale, we're scaling the workload for the cloudification and adopting multi-cloud. So now we also not only adopting the AWS, we had the Azure part, Google part, even Huawei Cloud. Maybe not quite popular in US, but we're also adopting the Huawei Cloud as part of the multi-cloud journey. Of course, the cloud native for the application itself. And now we are in this stage to monetize itself. Because at the end, if you look back to organizations, you need to define what is the objective of the cloud migration itself, whether it's only for the agility and for the cost efficiency, or later on you can monetize the cloud and then get the new revenue stream. And then when we talk about the foundation of the cloud itself, I think there are several things we need to consider when we do the cloud migration, right? First, about the infrastructure itself and the operations. Set up the IAC, infrastructure, Terraform, etc., considering the high availability requirement, how many AZ you need to deploy, and then the landing zone itself. And then about the application itself, the pipeline, security, IDP, SaaS, DaaS, etc. You need to have this foundation if you want to set up and start the cloud migration. And it's the reason why we are here, right? Because we are in the Datadog conference, we consider about the observability, how later on we can correlate the log, trace metrics, and also about the security governance to have this foundation of the cloud migrations. And then we come to talk about the FinOps, right? I will not talk one by one about this thing. We can find this in the finopsfoundation.org. Two things that are quite important when we do the cloud migrations and about the costs are understanding the cloud itself, having the visibility of the cloud costs. You need to have the data ingestions, allocate for each cost budget, whether this account is attributed to which application, which account, who owns this cost, and then reporting and anomaly management. The first thing about the understanding, and then the second thing is about the optimizing the cloud itself. Optimization can do in several approaches, right? From the architecture itself, technical, and also the commercial, licensing, etc. So these are two things you need to start when we talk about the FinOps and cloud cost optimizations. Next, about the tooling, I will hand over to my colleague.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, when we talk about the tools that you use, whether you, I believe most of you is cloud native, right? So when you're using the cloud migration, or you already move your workload to the cloud, you tend to use the tools, like we can say that the basic tools, you can, like a trusted advisor for the recommendation, and also the cost explorer for cost usage report, and also we have the quick site for the report and also the analyzing. But more you dig deeper into the analytic, you will need the more advanced analytic tools. So this is the Datadogs come to play. So we can correlate between the cost insight with the performance metrics, and also the operational metrics. So you can always improve, or you can always optimize your cloud environment and also the resource and also the application performance. So how we can embrace, or how we can grow the cost awareness into our daily engineering decision. So we can start from the visibility. So the first visibility that we need to have is about the real bill spending. So when you have this kind of visibility, you can see how much you can spend in the end of the month. So you can include the formula for the custom pricing. You can add if any enterprise discount you have, or if any cloud share cost that maybe you can divide into the account. So you can have this kind of visibility, and you can always see whether your cloud environment is still under your budget or not. Second thing is related to cost trend analysis. So this kind of visibility will enables you to always proactively monitoring whether your resources or your workload is going up or going down. So it will give you all the visibility to proactively monitoring your resources by day to day, and also it will connect the spending pattern with the optimized cost optimized effort, and also whether action taken is making an impact or not. Last piece is about the budget, actual, and also the forecast. So this is just give you the idea that we create the custom workflow that we can compare between the budget, the actual, and also the forecast. But I think recently Datadog already have the native product for that. So I think this is not relevant anymore, but just give you the idea that you can also customize the budget versus actual, and also the forecast, that we can also monitor whether the actual spending is always under your control to be under your budget, and also if we have any forecast, then we can take a look back to the budget that we have. So another visibility is related to microservices level. So when you already adopt the microservices, right? So you can have the opportunity to see cost is on the deeper level. So meaning we can see cost per services, you can see cost per deployment, you can see per namespace, something like that. Even you can see the cost in the API level. So you can see how much the cost in the API level, how much cost call per API. So you can always correlate the API cost within the business metrics, for example, like revenue or user engagement, for example. So you can always take a look those insights into your business goals. Another visibility also is related to infrastructure as code. So when you have infrastructure as code in place, you can provision your infrastructure, but also you have the pipeline for that to automate the provisioning, to secure the infrastructure, and also the crucial part is IIC cost estimation. So whenever your developer team is doing the changes or everything in the infrastructure, we always can see how much cost is will spending into your infrastructure. So this will enable the developer to be able to have the visibility and also can take a look, can tend to monitor always the cost. If any changes, then you can see cost impact for that. Yeah, so this is related to the strategy. So the strategy we adopt is likely more the basic one, but we can say this is the more impactful to the our spending budget. So the first one is related to automation. So the developer team tends to set the CPU memory request is more, the gap between the usage and also the request is higher. So we can create the automation for that. So yeah, so we can have the gap between the usage and also the request processing to be able to more smaller. So we can always imagine you have the more thousand of services, then every time you will not manually adjust, then it will give the developer team effort. So the second strategy is about how we can save and also the reserve instance. So we can classify based on whether the workload is spot friendly or whether the workload is non-spot friendly. So we can have the threshold. So after that, we can set the saving plan and reserve instance into the we can set the saving plan as a reserve instance when to avoid the overcommitting. So we can have the saving plan as a reserve instance. The last strategy is about the multi-architecture. So meaning if we set the deployment, ARM will ARM currently is more price to benefit is more better than the x86. So we can create and we can enable the multi-output for the deployment pipeline. Then we can have some kind of easiness to switch between the architecture. So the last part is about the governance. So when we have this kind of operating model, we can always see the visibility and also the responsibility to always keep the team cost awareness and also to divide the responsibility. Request.
Yeah, thank you, Lutfi. So Lutfi has shared some approach and tooling when we have this cost visibility and also cost optimization, starting from the planning part when we do the IAC part, and then from the runtime until the deployment in the production, right, from the cost optimization part. Also about the governance, how we separate the accountability and ensuring that the developer team that owning the application, they also accountable for the cloud cost. So there are several approach and tools for the cost visibility and also cost optimizations. But the takeaways from this session that maybe you can get and you can take from your organizations. First, we talk about the shared ownership, right? Because FinOps spans across multi-stakeholders, from the CCOE, operation team, developer, finance team even. So we need to set up this clear boundaries, segregation, and clear accountability. Who owns the cost? Who owns the operational things? Even the showback, the chargeback. Frankly, our journey is not in the chargeback yet, But as part of the FinOps, the ideal part is the chargeback, right? So it's like we mentioned, because we start from the on-premise, that moving to the cloud part is quite challenging to have this practice until the chargeback, the ideal ways of the FinOps. So the first thing is to have this clarity on the ownership and the accountability. Second part is about the tools itself. So I think we know in the market a lot of tools for supporting the FinOps, right? But you need to think that this tool is supposed to be not only giving the recommendation, the insight, but also the actionable things, even the automation. So observability only is not enough, right? So you need to think that adopting the analytics tools to recommend and automate the optimization itself later on. And then we need to think in the mindset that the FinOps is not a one-time event, it's not a quick fix, but it's a journey. Like I mentioned, even in organizations, FinOps is still a long way to go until the chargeback, the ideal state of the FinOps graph that we see. And maybe you can also think in your organizations, where is your stage now and what step you need to do for the ideal state of the FinOps. So it's a long journey for us, and in this journey, like we mentioned, the hyperscalers supposed to be our partners. We need to ensure we have strategic partnership with them so that they can also help us, and the partner itself, maybe Datadog, they can also support us in this FinOps journey. So quite interesting story that the CCM, the product Datadog that we use a lot, we have a lot of discussion with them and we give them a lot of feature requests until now. So it's, we can say that we grow together with the CCM product in Datadog. And then fourth is about the architecture. Like we mentioned, we are in the on-premise world, and we are now in the hybrid cloud world. Cost, like Werner Vogels mentioned always, that we need to think that cost is a non-functional requirement for application. So when we do the architectural things, we need to think about the cost itself. Sometimes in the on-premise worlds, they don't think about cost, right? So we need to set up this mindset for the organization that's still in the on-premise that move to cloud, that architectural always impacted by the cost, and it will impact the cost. And cloud is always about the cost. So when we do the cost migration, always think about the costs later on. And then the last thing is the culture. It's always about the cultures. And it's the real challenge for us, because the toughest barrier is not about the tooling, right, but the mindset. Like we mentioned, in the on-premise, we have the mindset that just deploy and then leave it. But in the cloud, we cannot do that. So this culture is quite challenging for us, and I think for everybody to have this mindset in the cloud world, right? So let's do and embed the cost awareness across the organizations, the IT, business, finance, etc., to embrace this culture of FinOps. So thank you. I'm James.
Awesome. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Lutfi. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, I'll give you this mic.
Hey, thank you. You mentioned infrastructure as code. Could you talk more about who owned that infrastructure as code? Did it change over time? And you also mentioned that you had tooling in place to estimate costs as they were doing it. Like, was that tooling that you made yourself? Are you using a SaaS? Like, what are you using to give, I'm assuming, teams at this point, that kind of information as they're generating that code?
Yeah. So currently, who the owning is we have the team, that Cloud Center of Excellence team, that manage the infrastructure as code. And for the execution itself, we have other team, which is the cloud operation team. So they will do the execution, or they will do the changes for every time, any request for every infrastructure changes. But the owner is Cloud Center of Excellence team. And also for the cost estimation, right? For cost estimation is, we use the third-party tools to do the estimation. So for the pipeline, we create the pipeline in the GitLab. So we have the pipeline, and then we add the cost estimation stage into in the middle of the pipeline, and those states will call the third party to have the estimation, so we can see how much costs will occur whenever there is a changes from the IAC.
Let me add something. So in the enterprise organization, we have many stakeholders, right? So especially in the large enterprise, right, we have the developer, application developer, the operations, even the infra and cloud operations, the CCOE, and then the whole ITSM things, right? So the one that own the IAC, the code is the cloud COE as of now, because it relates to the infrastructure, right? So, but the one that who own the application pipeline is the application developer. So yeah, we need to segregate this SOD across the organizations. That's the first thing. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Thank you. Was there one more? Yeah, perfect. Emeritus, to pass this mic. Sorry.
What dictates your decision to keep some of the your infrastructure on-prem versus the cloud? We deal in PHI where it's all data, where we have a huge influx of data that we have to transform, change, catalog, route through our environment. And sometimes, depending on the amount of transactions that comes in, it can be very taxing on the environment itself. So, and then of course the applications that tie into those as well. So what actually dictates the best cost solution or the best solution cost-wise and I guess functionality-wise, you know, the high availability, redundancy, et cetera, keeping stuff on-prem versus a cloud-based solution?
Yeah, thank you. So for some context as well, so in IT we have 200 plus applications, right? So we only migrate the 15 plus applications in the cloud, even not all stacks. So first thing, we need to have the cost-benefit analysis, of course, right? Several parts is what is the resiliency requirement for these applications. We need to do it thoroughly and then to segregate the stack for each application. For example, we have invest a lot in the database, for example, like I mentioned the Oracle things. So if we migrate the database directly to the cloud, it will diminish the investment part. So there are several parts that quite having the value still on the on-premise. That's the second case. Another case about the ingress and egress cost. We think a lot about these things. If we have a lot of transaction back and forth in the front end and the back end, we need to think which stack is suitable when we move to the cloud. So that's why several stack still stay in the on-premise. So there's several consideration when we move and then which one is still on the on-premise.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else have any more questions? Perfect, cool. So there's a mic there you can use standing in the middle, and then I'm going to run over to you as well.
Sure. Just following up on that question, right? You guys mentioned that you use AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure, and also Huawei Cloud. So could you actually go into like what workloads you use, which cloud, and what was the rationale behind choosing particular clouds for particular workloads? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So we tend for the polycloud, not multi-cloud. So what's the difference? If we talk about the multi-cloud, one workload can run in several CSP, right? But when we think about the polycloud, we think that one workload is suitable only for one cloud, because set up an application that run in the multiple cloud is quite challenging as well, right? So our premise now is for the mission critical application, we set up in the one, let's say AWS. But for several typical of workload, let's say the productivity, right? It's quite suitable for the Azure Office 365 and several desktop service, right? It's quite suitable in the Azure part. And then several workload that only require the basic infrastructure, let's say, we can just run in the Huawei because of the cost effectiveness. So this is our principle now to have this polycloud setup. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Hi.
Yeah.
In all that journey that you have, how do you, or what do you do with the cybersecurity? Because that's also different, you know? So did you define all the model, the governance in the foundation cloud model, or you do it in other phase? And when you do the implementations, because all the controls that you have to change or define, you have to do it in several phases, in several times. What do you, what
Yeah.
can you
Yeah, thank you
say
for the
else?
question. So when we talk about the first foundation phase, right? Talking about the landing zone, we need to include the cybersecurity actually. So we set up the guardrails, the security policy, SCP, etc. We need to define even the first phase. Yes, embracing this thing is not easy, right? Because on-premise mindset is different with the cloud mindset, and we are still in this journey as well. But at least when we set up the foundation landing zone, we did need to include the security part as well. So starting from this landing zone and then come from the application layer. And even when we do the application design, application layer, we need to also include the application security as well. So it also evolving along way with the journey actually. So even now, we still also looking for the best solution for the security, which one is more suitable because technology is quite changed and there are cool things every day, right? So we keep assessing what platform, what approach for even security that we can do it better in this cloud space. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Anybody else with any more questions? Yeah? Well, do you want to use the mic in the middle there? Want to use that? Yeah, perfect.
Hi. Was there an example of one of the applications that you migrated into the cloud where you had to re-architect prior to moving into the cloud? And when you went through the financial feasibility, when you're estimating, were you even close to what the final product ended up costing?
Yeah, thank you. So example of the application is the mobile self-service. I don't know if we have the My Verizon or etc. So we have my Telkomsel that our customer can do the purchase, the package, and then seeing the bill, everything from the mobiles. That's quite a mission-critical application that generating revenue for us. That's why this mission-critical require the resiliency requirement, and then we move this to the cloud, basically. And about the stack, I think Lutfi can mention, but about the cost perspective, like I mentioned, in the first years is not as expected. So that's why in the second, third year, we keep optimizing with this approach until we have this equilibrium of the budget and the cost things. What the stack, please?
Yeah, over the stack, some of the application before is using the monolithic one, but when we have a plan to migrate to cloud, some of the application is doing the refactoring to microservices also. So the moment is match when we doing the migration, then the application team doing the refactoring into the microservices level. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Had a quick follow-up to that one just before we come back to the questions. Yeah. So where you said then, Lutfi, that you had teams move the monolith to microservices as they did that, how did you get them thinking about cost as they did that refactoring? Like, how did you get them to think about the cost side of things? Because I mean, I used to be a developer and I would just be like, yeah, that's a cool piece of technology. I'm just going to use that. And so how did you get people thinking about cost?
It will come, yeah, from our experience, it was not coming in the first place, actually. So that's why in the second 3 years, then they just realized, because at the end, they are the one who justify their own application, including the infrastructure part, actually, right? So when they come to the next year budget, it's not quite sufficient, right? So that's why they start to think that, they need to have this cost in their mindset. So yeah, from the experience, it's not come in the first year, basically. Yeah. So it's like I mentioned, it's journey, right? So yeah, and it's quite expensive experience. Yeah.
It seems like there's some agreement in the room with that.
Okay.
Any other questions for anybody else? Yeah.
So you're showing you're mapping costs to like the applications. Have you made any attempts to map costs to like products? If you have multiple products or like services, like product lines, work with product team, how much the stuff costs?
Yeah, Lutfi can share about how segregate the cost per API and cost per microservices. But let me share about the product. So in our organization, we still not think product as a commonly product, right? So we can see that Telkomsel, this application is one product basically. So it has their own product owner in the business side, and it has their own team in the IT side. And then there are another application with the same structure. So we can say this is the product with all the microservices, like I mentioned, about 10,000 plus microservices in this product line or this Telkomsel application. You can share about the costings?
Yeah, for the costing in the service level or microservice level, we try to create, like I shared before, that we create the custom dashboard for that. So every team can see how much the API level costs. So they can correlate between the, oh, this API is cost this much, and then how many revenue that coming from that API, so they can adjust the business goal for that. So that's it.
Then, Christian, that you had, there's like a product owner who sits over that whole product. Do they have the ability to like, just to follow up to the question, do they have the ability to like roll up the costs so they can see the cost at a product owner level, and then you could also drill down to the individual microservices? Yes, you do that as well.
So that's why I mentioned we starting the show back first. In the another word, or the ideal word is supposed to be charge back. So they are the one who funding this product, right? But now we just show you already spending this amount for your product actually. So this will happen now.
Awesome. Any last questions? Perfect. Okay, one last round of applause for Christian.
Thank you.